Hello and welcome. I am Laura Radnicki of lauraradnicki.com, a craft site with fast, fun, and easy craft projects. And the best part is there's no perfection required here. So we are working our way through the 30 days of Ornaments project. And today we are on day 22. So today we are going to make a hand-sewn felt Christmas tree. So I have my supplies here. And what we are going to do is use felt and embroidery floss, and I'm just going to hand stitch this. Now, if I used my sewing machine, it would go a lot faster, but one, I like the look of the hand sewing stitches, the hand stitching, but also if you don't have a sewing machine, you can still completely make this with just hand stitches. So here's our supplies. Felt, and I have some gray felt that I cut into triangles here, and then I have some, it's kind of a sand colored felt, two little rectangle pieces that I've already sewn together for the trunk, but I'm trying to make this video just slightly faster. But so some sand colored felt for the trunk. I have a light kind of tan embroidery thread that I'm using for sewing it all together, as well as adding some embellishments on the front of the Christmas tree. An embroidery needle. I have some twine that I'm going to use as the hanging string. I have batting to make the inside padded, and my scissors. So the first thing I did was determine what shape I wanted to make. I wanted it to be a Christmas tree, so I cut two triangles, two identical triangles for the Christmas tree. I cut two small little rectangles to make the trunk. And then I decided that I wanted the front of my Christmas tree to have some little, almost like little star, like an X with another part in there. And so I just used a needle, my embroidery needle, and some thread, and did some little stars across one of the triangles. And so this is going to be the front of my Christmas tree. But I wanted to do that so that it saves some time. And the back is not pretty at all, but that does not matter. So it's on the front. That's what matters. And then for the trunk, I also wanted to do that ahead of time too. So I just matched the two up, and I stitched down the side, across the bottom, and up the other side. And it's just a simple back and forth running stitch. You can do where you stitch around the outside if you want to do that way. That is just fine. But I kind of like the back and forth in and out look. You'll probably be able to see it better when I do this side, as well as the pictures that'll go along with this. But I know this is hard to see because the embroidery floss and this felt are the same color. But so I sewed the three sides, knotted it at the top, and then I stuck a little of this fill inside so it's a little bit padded. So now what we're going to do is start to sew it together. We're going to sew most of the three sides. I'm going to also sew the hanging string in the top as we go. So when it comes to the top, we will put this in there as we sew, so it will already be part of it. And then we're going to leave a gap and stuff it with this, and then we'll finish and close the whole thing up. But so the first part that we need to do is to secure the tree trunk inside. So I'm going to take my two apart, and I'm going to take the trunk and just kind of lay it in place on the back. And then I'm going to put the top piece on, and then I'm going to pin it in place. I just don't want it moving around as I have a chance to sew it. So I cut a piece of embroidery thread here. We're going to thread it on the needle. Okay, knot the other end. And now as we start sewing here, I'm not going to start on the back, otherwise you would see the knot there. So I'm going to go in between them and come from in between, and that is going to be the start of my stitching. Okay, so I'm just going to go from front to back, back to front, front to back, back to front. That's the simple stitch that I'm going to use. And I'm going to sew pretty close to the edge, but not close enough that it risks being pulled out. And the whole point of this is that it's clearly hand sewn. So we're not looking to make it appear like it's sewn on a machine. And my trunk is sliding down a little bit, so I'm actually going to scoot it up just a little bit more. And you know, I think I might be able to do a better job of manipulating all of this if I just hold it by my hands, with my hand and not the pin. So I'm going to just pinch it in place here. I can feel the trunk, the top of the trunk is kind of right in the middle of my thumb, and so I'm just going to hold it there as I sew. So I'm just going back and forth right over the trunk. And you want to make sure that you are getting all 3 layers. So it kind of scoots around a little as I'm pushing the needle through, but there we go. Okay, I got all 3 layers there, and you can give it a little tug to make sure it's secure, and that is just fine. Okay, so I'm going to continue stitching around this edge, and when I get close to the top, I'm going to stop, and then I'll put the hanging string in place. But I'm just going to continue on for a little bit, going back and forth. And it doesn't really matter how long you make your stitches. Mine were closer together down here because I was trying to get more in this small area, but now here they're probably a little less than 1/4 of an inch long, maybe in between 1/8 and 1/4. And it does not matter as long as it's just going to hold the whole goal is to keep the 2 pieces of felt together and to make it tight enough that our fill stays in and doesn't fall out any of the sides. Okay, I'm getting close to the top now. So we want to figure out how we are going to attach our hanging string. So I typically like to have a knot at the top. I think that adds a little visual interest to the top of an ornament. So I'm going to tie a knot maybe 1.5 inches from the top. This twine is a little bit bent, so I'm going to cut that off. All right, so here is my hanging string. And what I want to do is attach it or put it in place so that this loop is inside. So when I when I stitch the rest of the tree, it will anchor this in place. So I'm going to put it in place there. And I'm going to try just kind of holding it with my hands. Sometimes when I do this, not pin it when I just hold it with my hands, it ends up not working quite as well as I would have hoped. But we're going to give it a go and just see what happens. Sometimes pinning is great, and sometimes I feel like it's more work and doesn't work as well as just holding it with my fingers. Okay, so we are at the very tip now, and so now I want to try to anchor it. Ah, see, look, it pulled right out. So that obviously did not work. So we're going to go to plan B here. So I think what we're going to do is see if we can pull these stitches out that I just did. And I'm actually going to just put a little bit of glue right in the top on the inside and see if that will hold it in place. So I am going to take my glue gun here, just put a tiny little bit of glue on the inside of the tree. Then I'm going to put my looped part of twine down in there. And so I'm going to keep it open as it dries. So guys, this is the kind of thing that happens all the time when I'm making these things. Usually my first draft of things is not even close to perfect. But I always learn something, and then my second one's a little better. So we just adjust and try again, and it doesn't matter if you screw up or if things don't go according to plan. It is just the process that matters, and your end result is almost always going to turn out just fine. And if it doesn't, then you start over, right? Okay, so it is dry. Okay, so now I can just kind of put it in place, and now it's secured. So now I can pull on it and it's just fine. So I'm going to, let's see, make sure that my string is coming out of the proper side because it got a little crazy trying to pull it through there. Now we'll just put it back in its proper place and continue stitching it down. And I'm going to go all the way down, most of the way on this side. And then I think I will leave, I'm going to stop and then stuff it as much as I can and then continue on. Okay, so I am down to the bottom. There's still this corner that I need to do, but I'm going to use this opening right now to stuff some fill in. And so you can use a blunt object like maybe the eraser of a pencil or a pen or something like that to help you get it up into the corners. So I have used a big knitting needle in the past, a big one, so like the tip is really pretty blunt, but even then you have to be a little bit careful. And we don't want to overfill it because our hand stitched seams will come apart if we push too hard and stuff it too full. So we just want a little bit of full fill in there to help it have a little shape. So then it's a little more interesting than it would be if it was just two flat pieces of felt without anything inside. All right, I think I'll do just a teeny bit more on this other side. And I think right before I close this bottom section up, I'll stick some more right in this corner. But for now, I'll just continue on. Okay, so I have one tiny little hole left. And we'll see if I can just fit a little piece in there still. And it feels pretty even, so I think I'm going to call that good. So then we want to just stitch up the last little section. Okay, and now on the back is where I want to knot my embroidery floss. So I'm going to just do a little stitch here. I'm not going to be able to see it because it's on the back. Tile knot, then I stick it in the middle, kind of through there, pull it through so the thread kind of comes through here, and then I'll snip it right there. All right, then we clean it up a little bit, check everything. And there we go. This is a hand sewn felt Christmas tree. And I think it's super cute. You could embellish it however you want. You could do multicolored balls or ornaments on your tree. You could do maybe some stitching of garland if you wanted, some, back and forth like that. You could use a different color for a tree. I just happen to have gray. Whatever you want. You could do this as a square present, maybe even. But super fun, and I think kids would have fun with this. Maybe if you had a little bit of an older kid, so my kid is 3.5, so it's 2, he would not, he'd want to participate maybe, but wouldn't really be able to. But if you had a little bit of an older kid, they could definitely help you with this, or do their own maybe triangle, embellish the triangle a little bit, and then you could turn it into an ornament for them. So very simple, very fun, and this is day 22 of our 30 Days of Ornaments project. So I invite you guys to check out the Mama Makers Club craft community. It's a free community on our site, and in there you get access to our free resource library, and it's full of printable patterns and downloadable checklists and cheat sheets to help you be able to make the crafts on the site faster and easier, and just help you make more things in your daily life, because ultimately that's why we're all here. So I invite you to check that out. It's lauraradnicki.com/library, and you can read about it and see if that sounds like something you'd be interested in. I would love to have you there. And I will see you next time for the next ornament in our 30 Days of Ornaments project. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.